Hello everyone, this is Gary from Fantastic Fundas, and in this lecture today I am going to talk to you about the new forces that had emerged during the 1920s. Now, please understand that we have already done NCM before this, non-cooperation movement, and the movement was withdrawn. And when the movement was withdrawn, there were a few peasant movements in India. We have already done those. And then there was a Gurdwara reform movement and temple entry movement. We've done those also. And then there was some issue created by the Suffragist party, right? That is done. And we also done about the role of the working classes at this time, working class, what they were doing, and all the story, right? And finally, one last very important aspect, and it is in fact one of the most important ones that is left, was there were one more new force which was emerging at this time. Okay, and I've also given you a hint about that in the earlier lecture, and that was about the Marxism and the socialism, which I've already talked. Now, so the new forces were coming up, right? So these new forces, what are these forces, and what do they do? We'll talk about those. And all this is basically the result of the various happenings of the, let's say, from 1915 onwards, right? NCM and Khilafat and all those things, right? So let's start with it. Mainly, the things happen over here, and the main year is 1927 when things really change. Anyway, in 1920s, what is happening, that there's a crystallization of the main political currents on the national scene. Okay, now what do you mean by this? It means that what I mean is there is crystallization of, one is policy of truth and the other is the policy of non-violence at this time. It is during this period only that we'll see how it happens. Okay, at the same time, because you see, even people like Bhagat Singh, they also start believing in non-violent means. And then entry of, that's like number one, right? Number two, in this decade of 1920s, in fact this is also proven by the CDM movement and the salt satyagraha, which happens later on. Now, second is the entry of Indian masses. This is important aspect which happens, and that of course happened with the CDM movement only. And of course, it's not that alone CDM was responsible for it. All these people, peasant movement and Gurdwara temple reform and Swarajist party, all these things also contributed to bringing the masses onto the scene, right? And then there was also influence of the Indian political thinkers growing now, right? New thinkers were coming up, so all these thinkers were also having big role, right? And then after this, there was emergence of socialism had grown very strong at this time. So in this background, we are going to talk about the emergence of new forces during the 1920s. And if I talk about spread of Marxism and socialist ideas, so let's begin with this idea only, that is one of the new force that was working at this time. So there were many other new forces I'll be talking to you. For example, there was the force of the youth, and also there was a trade unionism, right? And the peasant agitation, I've already talked to you. And there was also caste movement. So this is just like a brief summary of all the things that were happening at this time. I will be tackling with the topic of these, revolutionary nationalists, for example, Bhagat Singh, Surya Sen, in the next lecture. In this, I'll just give you a small introduction about the revolutionary nationalism of the 1920s. Earlier also we talked about few of these revolutionary nationalism. I hope you remember them now, right? So let us begin with the topic socialism, or the spread of socialist and the Marxist ideas. This is the first thing we are talking about. So spread of socialist and Marxist ideas, right? Now, what was the reason that, because these people were rising? Okay, their rise was essentially, they rose as a left wing, and that too within Congress. Okay, within Congress. This is symbol for with. Okay, now all the young nationalists were very active over here. For example, Nehru was there and Bose is there. Of course, they are young people at this age, right? This is just 1920s going on. And they were, all these people, Nehru, Bose and lot many other leaders, they were inspired by a Russian revolution that happened in 1917. Now, they were not happy with the Congress. Number one is inspired. Number two is they are not happy. Not happy with what? With Congress. Why? Because NCM has been withdrawn, nothing much is happening. They did not like the Swarajist way, because they felt that this is not the right way of doing things, or the no, even the no changes. They wanted a more consistent anti-imperialist line. In fact, what they were looking was Purna Swaraj. For until now, we were talking about the dominionship, that we would be like a other British areas like Australia, Canada, where we are self-ruling. Swaraj is there, but ultimately the British Empire is there. Okay. And these people, they were having some vague awareness, rather vague international awareness. All these people, Nehru, Bose, and all other leftists at this time. So they wanted to combine not only this, their ideas included not just Swaraj, their ideas also included, one is this, and the other is they wanted to combine socialist movement, and under which they would give social justice to the people. And that is why they also raised the issues of oppression by the capitalist class. So they were opposing the capitalist class. They were raising those issues at this time, but not just by capitalists, but also by the landlords at this time, right? Now, along with, of course, nationalism, things were going on. Now, see, there's one very important aspect related to the socialist and the Marxist ideas at this time, was that youth leagues were being formed at that time. Youth leagues. And the student conferences were held. So student conferences are very important this time. And in fact, the first all India Bengal conference of students, this was held, and this was held in 1928, and when it was held under Nehru as its president, right? And then after this, all over the country, what happened after this thing started, right? After this, all over the country, there were students and youth conferences being held. So this thing spread to all India level. So we are seeing how the movement is spreading, the idea of socialist and Marxism is spreading, and youth were even turning to socialism, and some of them even turning to the radical socialism, in which even they were ready to kill people. And whereas the Gandhian idea was very different. Gandhi said, I am ready to die for every, there are a lot of causes for which I am ready to die, but there is no cause for which I am ready to kill. So they put forward and they popularized the idea of complete independence, and that is basically what is called as Swaraj. Swaraj has two meanings. I hope you are clear about it by now. One is dominionship, one is Purn Swaraj, of complete independence, right? And many of these people, they dissociated themselves from the Gandhian ideology. They turned socialist, and because they were turning socialist. Okay, socialist. I'm writing it over here. And when they were turning socialist, in this background comes into formation the Communist Party of India. That is how we are leading to the formation of the Communist Party. What is happening, that CPI, Communist Party of India, now this was the main communist organization at that time. And M.N. Roy was it said, M.N. Roy, he was the head of it, and M.N. Roy, actually, he was the first Indian to be elected to the leadership of Comintern International, Comintern, Comintern International. Now, his wife was a foreigner, right? Evelyn Trent Roy was her name, Evelyn Trent Roy. And and there were few other people also who were with M.N. Roy at this time. For example, there was this lady, Rosa Fitting. Please remember these names, they just might be asked in your paper. There was Muhammad Ali. There was Muhammad Shafiq Siddiqui. So there you see, there were Christians, Muslims, Hindus, all involved, right? And then there was also a person known as MPST Acharya, right? And together, they all founded a CPI at Tashkent in 1920, right? But a formal formation of, when we see the Communist Party of India, that is 1925. But here the seed of the Communist Party has been laid down, and There was also, I forgot this name, Abani Mukherjee involved with M.N. Roy at this time, right? Abani Mukherjee was there. So this is how things are going on. And after the second Congress of Comintern is done, and the CPI, this is formalized, though the formed in 1920 only, it is formalized in the year 1925 at All India Communist Conference. Where is it formalized? All India Communist Conference, which is held at Kanpur, and it is managed at Kanpur by a person whose name is Satya Bhakt. And if you remember, the very next year we had a Kali Dal also formed at this time, right? Anyway, so that is the background, like that is the main thing actually of the formation of the Communist Party of India. I will be talking to about a little more detail in the next lecture about Communist Party. Here I just wanted to introduce the party to you. And this is now happening in 1925, and then in 1929 many communist leaders are arrested because government is now very scared of the communism, and they feel that things are not going their way, so there would be a lot of problem. They are arrested by the government. And in fact, a lot of people following this communist ideology at that time, they were held over here in what is called as in the Meerut conspiracy case. And in this Meerut conspiracy case, a lot of people were arrested. For example, to name few people, there was Muzaffar Ahmad, who was arrested. He was in fact given life imprisonment after this case. Then there was S.A. Dange, who was arrested, and then there was also there were like leaders, like English leaders were there. There was Pratt, and there was Bradley, and there was Hutchinson, right? Hutchinson, Hutch company hai na, so mobile wali Hutchinson. So that way these people were arrested, right? And public safety bill to stop the communism was brought, but then public safety bill, I have already talked about it, this public safety bill. Now this was defeated, which was brought to stop the communism. So this is how the Meerut conspiracy case is going on over here. And not only this, there was another conspiracy case. I should have mentioned it before this one. Actually, that was in 1924. So in this 1924 case, also many communists were held. This is also known as the Bolshevik Kanpur conspiracy case. What had happened in this case? There was this charge on the people. A lot of people. I will name those people to you. There was what was the charge? To deprive the king emperor of his sovereignty. To deprive king emperor of his sovereignty. And not just this, in British India, by complete separation of India from imperialistic Britain by violent revolution. This was the charge on these people under the Kanpur conspiracy case. And we will talk about all this in detail in the further lectures. For here, please understand, I'm just trying to introduce you to the revolutionary nationalism of this period. And who were the people who were arrested? Lot of people, long list. For example, yes, you have to remember this list somehow, right? You will remember. Just listen to lecture again and again, and while you're making notes, you can always browse through your notes again and again. That is how it is done. Nalini Gupta is there, and Shaukat Usmani is there. And then S.A. Dange is there, S.A. Dange, and S.A. Dange, he was there in Meerut conspiracy case, I mentioned just a moment before. And there were other people, for example, M.N. Roy was there. Actually, M.N. Roy was charged in absentia, but he had escaped, so he was not really punished in this case. From South India, there was a person called Singaravelu Chettiar, and there were other people like there was Muzaffar Ahmad was there. Muzaffar Ahmad. He was there in Kanpur conspiracy case also. Sorry, this is Kanpur only. I mean Meerut conspiracy case also. This was there in Meerut, and M.N. Roy was there in Meerut. So these way people were there. Anyway, so. There was also a person called as Ghulam Hussain. Now, actually, people were caught in this conspiracy case because of this person, Ghulam Hussain, who had trained traitor for Indians. He sided with the British. He became the spy for the Britishers. He became the informer, and because of him, so many Indians were at this time punished, right? And when such cases were held, for example, when the Meerut conspiracy case was held, they were saved, people were saved by lawyers, like they were very good lawyers coming out in support of all these people. What kind of lawyers? What are those names? For example, MC Chagla was there. MC Chagla is a very important lawyer of this period. M.A. Ansari is there. M.A. Ansari. You see, there is liberal element also. We are here talking about this communalist element we have talked about earlier also, right? And then there was Nehru was there. Nehru, of course, was there. Then K.N. Kadju was there. So such leaders were there who were fighting the Britishers, and they were supporting the nationalists, even though themselves might not be the supporters of any kind of violence, right? So in this background, you see the CPI formed and all these people working. Not just CPI party was formed. Some of the communist people, what they led to, their ideas led to formation of the parties were workers and peasants parties. Okay, workers. Okay, let me just write it again. Workers and peasant parties. Right? And they were also spreading Marxist and communist ideas. So all these parties, they were working, but please remember that all of them were working within the Indian National Congress, and they remained as integral part of national movement. Just because they were following that ideology does not mean that they were following Russia now or whatever, like, but they were necessarily working as part of Indian National Congress also at this time. Now that was about the spread of Marxism and socialist ideas. Then second thing I would like to talk to you is the activism of Indian youth. Now, one is they were joining the communist, and these parties and CPI has been formed, and then many student leagues were established. I talked about that, right? And in 1928, Nehru presided over the all Bengal Student Conference. That I've already talked to you. That was about the students. Okay, so there is what is there? There is Student League, and Nehru is there. All India Bengal Student Conference, right? And in 1928, Nehru attends this. Now, many workers and peasant parties have been founded which have propagated Marxist and communist ideas. I've talked about this. Now, they all remain integrated part of national movement. For example, in UP, tenancy laws were revised. Now, tenants, if I'll give you an example here, in UP, tenancy laws were revised. The tenancy laws were revised. Whatever tenants wanted, three things. What they wanted that rent should be low rent. Number two is they wanted protection from eviction, that they should not be evicted, so this should not be done. And then relief from indebtedness, no indebtedness. They wanted relief from this. This is what they were looking for, and it was the power of the youth who really played big role in when these laws were reformed at that time. Number three is peasants' agitation, right? Peasants' agitation. Now that is more in the United Provinces. Now, what is happening in this, that they also forced the government to review the tenancy laws. So issue here with them was of the tenancy laws and relief from indebtedness and protection against eviction. Now regions of focus the peasant agitation, they were Rampa in Andhra Pradesh. This is some secluded, isolated information that you will need to remember. This just might be asked in your paper. It was very popular in Rajasthan, and the movement was against the Rayatwadi system in Bombay and Madras. And in Gujarat, there was, of course, Bardoli Satyagraha. We have already done this in detail. And the other movements, for example, there was Awadh movement, and there was Kisan Sabha movement, and there was Eka, and there was Mapella. So all these movements were going on at this time also. This is in the 1920s what is happening, right? And so this was about the peasant agitation. This is number three thing. Number four is the growth of the trade unionism in the 1920s. So we are basically talking about the rise of new forces during the 1920s. There are many forces which rise at that time. The most prominent one is the revolutionary nationalism, which we will be completing in the next lecture. Let's just have an introduction to the main forces of this time. So the most important thing, organization at this time, was the All India Trade Union Congress, which was formed in 1920, and Lala Lajpat Rai, he was the first president of this, and Diwan, okay, let me just write his name, Diwan Chamanlal ji, he was the general secretary of this, Diwan Chamanlal, and Tilak was the moving spirit. Tilak was considered to be the moving spirit. because he had died by this time. The day NCM was launched, you know this thing, and these people were in just in love with the strikes. They love to strike. Jahan jao, inqilab zindabad, nare lagao. Anyway, so in fact, one of the largest strikes that they did, more than 5 lakh people participated. I'll give you a lot of examples of the strikes that were done by these people. And what are those strikes? Let me just name them. Let me just change the color for that. Yes. So, what are those strikes? For example, number one is there was Kharagpur railway workshop strike, right? And in this 2 lakh people had striked. Number two is Tata Iron and Steel Center. Okay, Tata Iron and Steel Center. This was a huge strike. This was done at Jamshedpur. But the interesting aspect of this, which you will not find in many books, it was that this was settled with the help of Shri S.C. Bose. S.C. Bose really helped in settling down this. And then number three is the Bombay Textile Mill strike. This was one of the largest strikes. In fact, 1.5 lakh people went on strike for 2 months. For 5 months. 1.5 lakh people for 5 months. That is why it's considered one of the biggest strikes. This was led by communists. This Bombay Textile Mill strike. Bombay Textile Mill. And then after this, number four is Buckingham Carnatic Mills. This was another strike, Buckingham Carnatic Mills. And then there was one more that is related to South Indian Railway Workers. South Indian Railway Worker strike. So that is how the strikes were being done at this time. And then for May Day, 1st May was also celebrated since in Madras. Okay, 1923 onwards, they were really celebrating 1st May as the Labor Day. You all know this. Now, this is about the trade unionism at this time. And then further, number 5 is the caste movements. Caste movement. And regarding caste movement, there was a Justice Party which was quite active. Justice Party. This was in Madras in 1917. And then there was self-respect movement under E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar. E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar, and if you remember, he was there in Guruvayur movement also. All right, so he starts here self-respect movement. He was there in Guruvayur also, and he's associated with DMK. Anyway, then Izawas, there was another movement by the Izawas. We have talked this already. This was under Ayyappan. Okay, Ayyappan. And where was this movement happening? This was in Kesavan, Kesavan, Kesavan. He was also there in Kerala, right? And then in Bihar there was a movement by the Yadavs in Bihar. And further, there was also in Punjab there was caste movement by the Unionist Party in Punjab. Under it, the leadership of this was under the Fazl Hussain. So these were the main caste movements of the period, right? Finally, coming to the last topic of this lecture is the revolutionary movements. Now, this is another reflection of the new mood that was happening at this time, and it started to take a socialist turn. In your paper, when you write your mains exam, you have to mention all these movements of the 1920s. Only then you will get good score. People were not happy with the nationalist line of strategy. Okay, that is, they were very fed up because NCM not failed, or NCM was not successful in achieving its objective, and this actually led to a revival of revolutionary movement. And if you there for example, there were a lot of movements at this time. There were three main people. One was Sachendra Nath Sanyal, and then there was Narendra Mohan Sen, and there was Pratul Ganguly. Now these three people were there. They developed off as shoot to Anushilan Samiti. Okay, we have already talked about Anushilan Samiti. These three people For all the people who are finding these names tough to remember, who were mainly involved in the formation of HRA, you can just remember that there were three people. One is Sachin Tendulkar, one is Narendra Modi, and Saurav Ganguly. With due respect, this is just a formula to remember. I really respect all our freedom fighters. Just for the sake of memory, you can remember this as Sachin Sanyal and Sachindranath Sanyal and Sachin Tendulkar. Then there's Narendra Modi and Narendra Mohan Sen, and Saurav Ganguly is Pratul Ganguly. That is how you can just remember these names. And the main aim of these people was to make what is called as the federal republic of the United States of India. That was their aim. Okay, so now let's get back to the lecture. So offshoot to Anushilan Samiti. Now this arrow over here should not be like this. Let me just draw it again. This should be like this, Anushilan Samiti. And this, whatever they developed, that was known as Hindustan Republican Association, and this was formed on the lines of the Irish Republican Army, and the name of their manifesto was the Revolutionary. And this HRA in 1924, let me just write on the next page. In 1924, so HRA has been formed, and it is in 1924 they were looking for armed revolution, because they felt that only way of achieving independence is armed revolution. And a lot of people these days also feel so, but then arms never got us freedom, Then what happened, that government struck hard on the Indians, all the revolution nationalists, because of people who were believing in violence. Everyone knew that government could hit them hard, and in fact there a lot of people, their youth was arrested. I'll talk about this story in detail in the next lecture, just giving you a brief overview. Right, youth was arrested, and there was also a Kakori conspiracy case, the one they have portrayed very well in that movie Rang De Basanti. And a lot of people who main two people who were hung at this time, they were Ram Prasad Bismil and also Ashfaqullah Khan, right? They were hung, right, and hanged by the Britishers. And soon revolutionary this idea, revolutionary nationalism, the terrorism, it came under the influence of socialism. That is where the thought of revolutionary nationalist changes to a very great extent, and it is under Chandrasekhar Azad that the name of the HRA is changed from Hindustan Socialist Republic Association, from HRA. And a lot of other people, for example Bhagat Singh is a very active leader in this. Okay, so now this is like you're writing a means answer only, all the points that I have discussed with you. You should mention all these points in your answer of what were the main forces of the 1920s. One was, of course, the moderate, the Gandhian force, because Gandhi is basically in jail for a long time when he's arrested in 1922, and this is the lull phase of the movement. And in fact, it does not remain lull with all these people. And what is this? One is the socialist Marxist ideas. I'm quickly summing it up. Number 2 is the peasant agitation. Number 3 is the growth of trade unionism. You can just turn the pages if you are making notes. And number 4 is the regarding the so socialist, Marxist, and the peasant agitation and the trade unionism. And of course there's Indian youth movement. I've already done that. And number 5 is the caste movement, and number 6 is the revolutionary nationalism. You must mention all these paper things in your exam, in your answer when you're talking about this. Now, for the purpose of our exam, we must go into much more detail of one topic out of all this. Most of these important details I've already covered, caste movement and all that I have already covered. But one very important topic is the revolutionary nationalism. And in that revolutionary nationalism, all these important leaders, whether it is Ram Prasad Bismil or Chandrasekhar Azad, next will be revolutionary lecture, and Bhagat Singh and Sukhdev Thapar and Raj Guru, and all these people will be talking about all of them in the next lecture, right? And lastly, before you go, please share this lecture on your social media. I would be grateful for that. And if you like this lecture, do click on the like button. That helps me understand, and also helps other. If this lecture is good, they will also watch this lecture. And if you want this lecture and all the future videos to come right into your email box, then you will need to subscribe to us. Then that you can do by clicking over here. So that is all, and thank you so much for watching this.